Hello, I'm Palm Beach County Superintendent Donald Fenoy. Thank you for joining us for this community meeting hosted by District 3 School Board member and Vice Chairwoman Karen Brill. Tonight you will hear important updates related to the district's next strategic plan and learn more about the equity-focused work undertaken by the school board in recent months. On April 14th, the school board worked together to create a new mission and vision for the district that will be shared tonight. Both the mission and vision will serve as a strong foundation for the development of our next strategic plan. I know Mrs. Brill is eager to share these updates with you tonight, as well as solicit your feedback during the community meeting using interactive poll questions and the chat box feature. Before she kicks things off, I did want to take a moment to formally introduce her. Karen Brill was first elected to the school board in November 2010 and has been actively involved in public education locally and at the state level for more than 20 years. She is known as a fierce advocate for students with disabilities, and even assisted with creating legislation that enables students with disabilities to obtain a standard high school diploma by demonstrating mastery of state requirements. Mrs. Brill is a true trailblazer in every sense of the word. I want to personally thank her and the entire school board for taking the time to connect with constituents via these community meetings. We look forward to your continued engagement in this process as we continue to work together to create a better educational system for every student in Palm Beach County. Thank you for your participation and have a wonderful evening.
So good evening, everybody. I'm Karen Brill, the school board member for District 3 and the board's vice chairwoman. I'm honored to be serving my third term as your school board representative. As many of you know, I have 4 children who graduated from our Palm Beach County schools. It is my youngest son who prompted my advocacy for the past 28 years for our students with disabilities. I am proud to say that I was a catalyst for and chaperoned in our district's inclusion of students with disabilities in the regular education classroom. Today, I hope to be a catalyst again as we chaperone in our new strategic plan, working with all of you, our stakeholders, as we develop new goals and look at the future through what I call an equity lens. Before we begin, I just want to bring up 2 items that I know are on everybody's mind, and that's what are we going to do about masks in school next year and social distancing? I want all of you to know that we have not made any decision regarding the next school year. At this time, we have to wait and see where the state and where the district is at with regard to the pandemic. I can tell you that my youngest daughter teaches in Sao Paulo, where she's also an administrator, and you know how bad it is in Brazil. Think back to January of last year and then where we were in March. So we cannot make a decision now. We have to wait. We have to hear what the health department says. We will make a decision when we get closer, but at this time, the board hasn't even discussed it. Also, social distancing. I know that that's on everybody's mind. Again, we are going to wait until we get closer to the start of the school year to make any decisions. As you know, South Florida, Palm Beach County, Broward, and Miami-Dade was hit the hardest in the state, and the safety of our employees and our students is of our utmost priority. So again, we are going to wait to make the decision. I'm happy to take all of your questions, but I don't have any answers with regard to that. I will also tell you that for every one person who says that they don't want the students to be wearing masks, there's another one that says that they do. It's a balancing act. It's something that I never anticipated when I ran for school board, that we would be in this period of time making these decisions. So again, I want to thank you for joining me. Hopefully we'll get to all of your questions. At the end of the conversation tonight, on the last slide, you will have my district cell phone number and my email address for those of you who don't have it. Please know, if you've never spoken to me before, that I'm always here to address your concerns, listen to your comments, take your suggestions. I'm here to serve you. So with that, I'm going to turn over the meeting to our moderator, Amy.
Thank you, Mrs. Brill, and hello to everyone out there. I so appreciate that we're able to connect with you virtual setting tonight. No, it's not the same as a traditional in-person setting, but for now, with what we're dealing with, it's the next best thing to get everyone's feedback and to get everyone involved in this process with the strategic plan. So I will serve as your moderator tonight, which means I will be monitoring the chat right there on YouTube, and I'll be passing along questions that you share. As a reminder, the purpose of this meeting is to hear your thoughts about the district's goals for the next several years as part of the next strategic plan. We're really thinking big picture here. So just think about that when you are coming up with your questions and some responses to some polls that we'll be putting out as well. Mrs. Brill will share updates on where we're at with the development of the next strategic plan. And then we will be giving you opportunities to give us your feedback throughout this meeting with interactive polls and question prompts. We realize that you may have questions about day-to-day operations, much like Mrs. Brill was mentioning before, how next school year will look. There's still a lot of questions about that, but we do have some upcoming meetings planned to address some of those concerns. We recently held a back to school community update. You can find that on our website, palmbeachschools.org. And this upcoming Thursday at 5 p.m., we will hold a Facebook Live about learning opportunities for students over the summer. So be sure to follow us on social media at PBCSD. Check with your school's data processor. Make sure that we have all of your contact information correct so you get timely updates. We're in this community engagement phase of developing this next strategic plan, and the district launched a survey about long-term suggestions and goals. We received more than 28,000 responses, which was really incredible. And you will be able to hear those results. Mrs. Brill will hear them as well on May 5th during a school board workshop. And those, of course, are aired live on television and online. So you can tune in then to hear the results of that survey. Now, let's get to know everyone out there at home who's watching or wherever you're watching from in our first interactive poll. So you're going to open up a new tab, or you can also scan that QR code that's right there on the screen, the funky looking thing. You can scan that with the photo app on your phone, and it'll bring up menti.com. You'll use the code 10254044 and tell us who you are. Tell us if you're a parent with a child in one of our schools. Maybe you're a grandparent with a child in one of our schools. Maybe you're a district employee, a parent and a district employee. We certainly have plenty of those out there, being such a large employer in the county. And maybe you're a student or a community member. Any of these responses is correct. There's definitely no wrong response to this one. And while we wait a little bit to see who is watching tonight with us, you can also put in the chat why you're watching tonight, what brought you here. And look, we already have some responses coming up on Menti right now. And you can see that we do have some parents watching, staff members. So we really thank you all for joining us. And we'd love to hear in the chat also why you're here tonight. And the chat should be right next to the YouTube link there. So hopefully if you can find that right by the video, you can just put in the chat why you're here tonight. So we'll wait for everyone to, as we wait for everyone to do that, Mrs. Brill, can you share with us what a strategic plan is and what all of this really means? We can't hear you.
That's what my children always say.
Okay.
I muted myself. So the
It happens.
plan, as you can see on the screen, defines what we need to prioritize when it comes to student outcomes and the organization's success. We worked together several years ago in 2016 and put together the first strategic plan that I believe we ever had that was formal in the county. But now it's expiring and things have changed. As you know, given the changes related to COVID, it was time for us to reevaluate our priorities as a district. But also, as you know from what's going on in the world outside, equity is something that we need to look at. And having, as you know, I represented students with disabilities, and getting the push for students to be included was also a step in the right direction for equity. But now we need to enlarge our definition of equity, which we'll talk about later. And we also have to face the reality that COVID has really impacted our student learning. Our children are not where they need to be. So we need your help. We need to get your help, your input to help mold the goals that we're going to have, because education is never going to be the same after this pandemic. Okay, so I guess I'm going to continue here. As you can see, there were different phases to us putting together the strategic plan. District staff presented a timeline to the board early in 2021 that laid out a 6-month development process for our next strategic plan. It also detailed the 3 phases for community involvement in this process, from pre-work design to the implementation of the next strategic plan. Phase 1, as you will see up there on the screen, focuses on evaluating where we are now and where do we need to go as a district. And it began back in February. We're still in phase 1, which kicked off with a community feedback survey that Amy had referenced earlier. Phase 1 wraps up with these community meetings. The district also formed the steering committee with representation from the district office, principals, students, teachers, parents, and community partners. They began meeting monthly in March, and all meetings are broadcast live and recorded so that you can watch the process unfold. More details can be found at palmbeachschools.org/strategic plan development. We'll transition in May to the design phase, and I invite all of you to tune into our public meeting on May 26th to hear the draft goals put forward by the steering committee. There'll be an opportunity for you to provide feedback via public comment, in person, or recorded message. We'll also be organizing focus groups. So please email strategicplan@palmbeachschools.org if you're interested in participating and haven't let us know already. The school board is scheduled to approve final goals in late July. So yes, we're really busy, and that's going to be part of phase 3. This last phase is also one of the most critical because it's about cultivating relationships to ensure successful implementation of our plan. We know we can't do this work alone, so we have to make a concerted effort to engage community partners in attaining positive outcomes for our children. We can go next. Okay, Amy?
Oh, yes, we're back. Hopefully, those of you who have been with us since the beginning here were able to get on to Mentimeter and use that code 10254044. If you're just joining us now, you can also scan that QR code there with your phone, with the photo app on your phone, and then click the link that pops up on top. So we want to know from you, what should be the district's top priority for the next strategic plan? Your options here are mental health and social emotional wellness, school safety, educational equity for every student, accelerating student learning due to COVID-19, investments in technology and associated learning, or maybe another priority that we didn't list here. And these may look familiar because some of these answers are what came out of that survey that more than 28,000 people took. And I know it can be pretty hard to choose between these really important options, and not exactly options for us, they're priorities, but options for you as you guys at home as an answer. Mrs. Brill, what do you think is most likely to be the top priority here? We already have some coming out from that Mentimeter.
Well, you know, it's in my district, a lot of it has to do with boundaries, and that's not even up there. So, and I see there is a question in the chat, which I will get to, Elizabeth, if you are still listening. But I would say right now, school safety is very, very critical because of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, and also accelerating the student learning, because our children are really struggling to keep on their grade level and also to catch up. You know, the lockdown and distance learning was difficult for a lot of our children, and particularly our students with disabilities. So we have a lot of catching up to do, and it's just not going to happen overnight.
And it seems like the audience at home, you know your district well. They are saying that option D there, accelerating student learning, I believe, if I can read it from there. Yep, that is what's coming out to be right now one of the top priorities just of that list. But of course, all of these are important and they all intersect with each other. You can't have really great academics without students feeling safe where they are, feeling supported. As Rory mentioned in the chat just now, there is so much overlap between mental health and social emotional wellness and these other areas. Of course, there's that intersectionality there with school safety and mental health, academics, learning, and mental health. So it's nice to see those of you who are also putting some of your thoughts in the chat there, which you can absolutely do throughout this presentation. We also have staff watching. I'm sure you're seeing that you're getting some answers right there in the chat already, but they will be taking a lot of this information to the Strategic Plan Steering Committee and the feedback that you provide tonight. You can also use the chat right now to answer another question for us. What questions do you have related to the process of developing the strategic plan? Obviously, we'll be explaining some more of that here tonight, but if you have any specific questions about that, you're welcome to put those in the chat now. And Mrs. Brill, next up, I think we will be speaking about equity, which we did get a comment about before from someone saying that if you were specifically here tonight, joining us to hear about how racial equity specifically will be addressed in the strategic plan. I think that's something that we're going to be talking about next.
Well, I'll jump right in, Amy, if that's all right. Before we get up to our equity statement, I know we'll be talking about that and our vision and mission. I just would like to tell you about our definition of equity. We sat as a board in a workshop trying to hammer out what does equity mean to us. And so I'm going to read to you, it's not on any of our slides, what we came up with as a board. We said that equity means each student, regardless of race, ethnicity, poverty, disability, language status, undocumented status, religious affiliation, gender identity, and sexual orientation, will have access to the opportunities, resources, and support they need to imagine, nurture, and achieve their dreams. So that's just the first start, our definition of equity. And we'll be talking a little bit more about our equity statement, which we will have a slide that will give you what our current equity statement is. But we do need to look at all of our goals through what I said before is an equity lens to make sure that we are not missing any of the groups in whatever we do. And I will talk to you a little bit later also about curb cuts. Oh, we're getting up to it now. So many of you have heard the story about curb cuts as a model for understanding equity. What happened was that it was discovered that when the groups had advocated for curb cuts so that wheelchairs and walkers could get up on the sidewalk, they realized that it was easier for everybody to pass onto the sidewalk from the road. But I'm even going to mention something else. I'm going to talk about the inclusion of students with disabilities in the classroom. Back in the day when we started including our students with disabilities, what they discovered is that the strategies for those students actually benefited all the other students. So again, curb cuts as well as inclusion, the strategies that we use to ensure equity is good, not just for one group, but for everybody. We need to make sure that public education is accessible to all of our students and that all of them have the same access to the goals that they dream. And we have to help them dream because there's many populations that don't even think they can have the dreams that they should have, that they can be anybody that they want to be, and that they can achieve anything they want to. So that's going to be our focus. Amy?
I think we have our new mission and vision coming up next now, and then we'll have another interactive poll after that. So if everyone pays attention to the wording here, that's going to be coming up in the poll. We'll be asking what words stand out to you. So listen up here.
Okay, so I'm going to read our new mission statement to everybody. And that is, the mission of the School District of Palm Beach County is to educate, affirm, and inspire each student in an equity-embedded school system. Okay, now we also developed a new vision statement to go along with our mission. And I'm going to read it to you because the words really resonate for me, and I hope they will for you as well. And this is a totally new vision statement for us. We envision the School District of Palm Beach County as an educational and working environment where both students and staff are unimpeded by bias or discrimination. Individuals of all backgrounds and experiences are embraced, affirmed, and inspired. Each and every one will succeed and flourish. The School District of Palm Beach County will take ownership for students' academic mastery, emotional intelligence, and social emotional needs by creating environments where students, families, staff, and communities will develop agency and voice. A joy of learning is fostered in every student, and a positive vision for their future is nurtured. Each student's cultural heritage is valued, and their physical, emotional, academic, and social needs are met. We see you. Now, I didn't realize we're going to go right into our equity statement next, but I asked them to add this slide because I wanted you to hear what we worked on in our last workshop. And that was developed on March 31st. And it's very important also as well. So I'd like to read this to you. And of course, you will have access to this on our website. The School District of Palm Beach County is committed to dismantling racism and other systems of oppression and inequity. We will create equitable and inclusive schools that ensure students have what they need to be successful in school and life. Achieving racial equity requires proactive and continuous investment in historically marginalized groups who have endured centuries of systemic oppression. The School District of Palm Beach County is committed to dismantling structures rooted in white advantage and transforming our system by hearing and elevating underrepresented voices, sharing power, recognizing and eliminating bias, and redistributing resources to provide equitable outcomes. The School District of Palm Beach County will take ownership for students' academic mastery, emotional intelligence, and social emotional needs by creating environments where students, families, staff, and communities will develop agency and voice. The School District of Palm Beach County acknowledges the existence of and will eliminate systems, processes, and mindsets that perpetuate race, ethnicity, poverty, disability, language status, undocumented status, religious affiliation, gender identity, and sexual orientation as predictors of achievement. The School District of Palm Beach County will embrace, celebrate, and honor our students, families, staff, and community members and their unique cultural histories while ensuring each student achieves personal and academic success. The bottom line is we want everybody to be included. We want to make sure that we meet everyone's needs, and we really do want to foster a joy of learning in all of our students.
We're already seeing some reactions in the chat to this equity statement, to the vision and the mission, all being so powerful and really feeling like they are going to give agency to our students and to our staff members. So we want to keep hearing some more of that feedback on menti.com. We have an interactive word cloud that will pull up shortly. It looks really neat when that all comes together. But what we want to know from you at home is which words or phrases from that mission, vision, and or the equity statement stand out to you. I know for me, I really appreciated in the vision where it said individuals of all backgrounds and experiences are embraced, affirmed, and inspired. I thought that that was a really empowering phrase to have in that vision statement. Mrs. Brill, is there something in particular that stands out to you while we wait for the word cloud to populate?
Well, I'm just trying to jot down a few words, and but I can't come up with singular words. I'm struggling to. Joy of learning to me is so critical, and making sure that everybody feels they belong, affirmed, is really important to me. We've come so far as a district. I tell people this all the time. When my children were young, if a child had a disability, and I keep going back to this, but you need to know that a student with a disability was not allowed in the classroom. Well, we want to make sure that every child is allowed in the classroom, regardless of the language that they speak, their differing abilities. We want to make sure that we have strategies for all of our children to be successful, and so that they can achieve their dreams, whatever those dreams are, and make sure that they feel like they belong.
Yeah, I think that is what is so powerful about these statements, is they really feel all encompassing. They don't feel like that they are, just talking about one type of student or one type of person. That they're talking about supporting everyone, which is exactly what we want to do here in the school district of Palm Beach County. So hopefully those of you who are on menti.com, there we are able to put some words in there that stood out to you. And seeing embrace is one of the popular ones, embracing individuality and strengths and even weaknesses, but bolstering those for students and helping them through it. I think those are some very powerful thoughts to come out of that. So thank you for those of you who participated in our word cloud. And that really leads us to thinking of more words and thoughts for how we would describe a student, the ideal state of a student when they graduate. So Mrs. Brill, if you want to explain what portrait of a graduate means.
Well, really, in order to get to where we want to be, we have to really look to what we want, what a graduate looks like. And I really don't want to feed you with my vision, my portrait of a graduate, because it's going to be different than yours. For example, my portrait of a graduate, I'll just tell you, back when my children were in school, my sons were really not going to be college material. And for them, the portrait of a graduate was someone that could go out and work and be happy and support themselves and have a career. For my daughters, it was going to be to go on to college and higher learning. To be able to attain their doctorate or their master's degree. So it was very different, but the underlying item for all of my children was happiness. I want my children, I want all of our students when they graduate to look back and be joyful and happy about the education they received with us, but be prepared to be productive citizens and also to understand people whose backgrounds are different and to celebrate their own heritage. I think that's very important. So I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, if you want to share.
Yeah, if everyone wants to give their thoughts on what should be included in the portrait of a graduate. I definitely love that idea of looking back on your time in school with happiness and those kinds of warm feelings of being not only a child, but being supported in your education and feeling like you're told that you can do anything and everything that you could possibly set your mind to. Let's see if, go to menti.com if you are just jumping in here and give us your idea for what should be included in the portrait of a graduate.
And as you're doing that, I'm not able to go through all of your questions. I see there are some questions about inequities when we have to deal with the FSA and high stakes testing. I completely agree. Unfortunately, those are mandates from the state. So we really don't have a choice. The FSA is not something that I believe is conducive to students being happy and achieving, but this is a mandate that we have to follow. I'm trying to see what else you have in here. High stakes testing, I mean, the only way that that's going to be eliminated is going to be by lobbying the state, and I don't see that happening. We do have other means for evaluation, but fortunately, there are other alternatives also. And I have, over the years, lobbied for alternative assessments. Not every student does well in high stakes testing. So as a board, we need to have that conversation as well. We'll continue to lobby for alternate means that students can prove that they have met the standards. But I completely agree that high stakes testing and the FSA does highlight inequities. So thank you, Tanya.
And now we're seeing some of those answers coming in on Menti for Portrait of a Graduate. Mastery of mathematics, reading, writing, history, science, and a foreign language. That's definitely a good idea for students to be well-rounded as they head off into their futures. Feeling prepared going forward because educators believed in them and gave them more than they needed to succeed. I think that that's especially important as well. Is there something that stands out to you here, Mrs. Brill?
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted. I was scrolling through the questions to make sure that I capture the questions later and answers that are important to District 3, particularly, that have nothing to do with this. But I do think the real world learning and critical thinking skills are important no matter what path a student goes on. And yes, confidence and determination, I think that's very important. Self-esteem. I want all of our graduates to walk across the stage feeling good about themselves, not feeling defeated, but feeling like they can conquer the world. So, I mean, for me, that is the most important piece.
Thank you to all of you who submitted your portrait ideas. And now is your opportunity to ask questions of Mrs. Brill, particularly just a reminder related to long-term goals for the district. So you can ask them in the chat here on YouTube, or you can, again, go to menti.com, use that code 10254044, and we will be submitting your questions to Mrs. Brill here to respond to them, and to hopefully provide some more clarity to anything that you are left wondering about the strategic plan. There's a lot that we've covered. We've covered a lot of ground here tonight.
So as we're waiting for that, Amy, I'm going to scroll up and start and just pick up one or two questions that are particular, that are not strategic plan, and then I'll have you, start handing me the questions you've received.
Got it.
Because I do want to make sure that I address the concerns of the community. So it looks like the first question that I have here is from Ira Bromberg. Hi, Ira. What is the status of the new high school on Lyons and in Lake Worth? And also, will the students in the canyons be zoned for Park Vista? So that's a good question. First of all, the high school as well as the middle school will be opening up in 2023. And just so you know, we were originally planning 2022, but the pandemic hit, and I have to tell you that building supplies were definitely impacted, and the price of building supplies. So that slowed us down a bit. But Ira, I can't tell you where the students are going to be zoned for yet. I will tell you that Steve Wallace, who you all know from Cobra, is my representative on the Boundaries Committee. And once we get closer, when that school is opening, it's possible the canyons might wind up in the new school or in Park Vista. But I am on it. I just want you to know that. But we can't make that determination yet. And the community input will be taken, and I will work with you on it. So now, Amy, if you've got a question yet on the strategic plan, then I'll go back to my next question.
Peter Green asked about critical thinking, and there were some questions that he had further up in the comment section here, but the most recent one is about having ancillary courses on what I think we call soft skills, conversation, manners, enabling civility for students as they become young adults and go into their professional lives. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I'm looking at that's not the questions that you have written here.
Those are coming up from Menti. There's
okay. So sorry. So it kind of threw me. I was reading as you were.
Okay. We have a lot happening at one time on the screen here.
But, the soft skills we absolutely have to focus on that. Looking at the questions that have popped up, we are going to, of course, have the same programs for gifted students, but the nice thing is that they can be accelerated as well in the regular classroom. But we do have a gifted program. And yes, they are suffering. Just because a student is getting A's and B's does not mean that we're meeting their needs if they're gifted. So we get that, we know that, and they will have just as many opportunities in the summertime to go back to enhance their learning, to catch up, because again, just because if we have a gifted student, just because they're passing does not mean we're meeting their needs. I can't see the other questions, the other comments that are there. Okay. I think it's a great idea about a weekly video to introduce students to different jobs. That's something that I would absolutely love to share. We do have wonderful career courses also, but you know what you want to do when you're in high school doesn't necessarily equate to later on. One of my concerns is that a lot of times students will enroll in our career programs, not in a career that they want, but just to get into that school. So I'm hoping that we'll have an opportunity for students to attend the schools that they really want to attend for the programs that they do want, rather than taking an elective just to make sure they get their foot in the door. And yes, graduates should be prepared for a happy, fulfilled life. Absolutely. Whether they're going to college or pursuing any other vocation. And I have to tell you, electricians, plumbers, we need them. And these are skills that we do teach in our schools and that we need to continue to teach. Certifications, those are going to be very important. And it's for all students, regardless of their language, regardless of their learning style. We need to make sure that they're prepared to achieve. Now I'm scrolling through to see if there's—
I have a good one for you here.
Okay.
Rory has asked, how does the strategic plan get applied and used by individual schools, from concepts and mandates to actual practice? I think that's a great question.
It's a great question. So hopefully, and this is something that we'll discuss as a board, the strategic plan is used when the schools create their school, when they do their, I forgot the name of it now, I'm going blank. This is my age showing. But when each school has its own plan that they create, my mind has just gone blank, I'm sorry, through their school advisory committee, they do put together a plan, and I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of it, but the schools should be aligning it to the strategic plan. Also, when we have board items on our agenda, we align them to the strategic plan. But it's something that should be a live document at the school advisory committees. And I now remembered it's the school improvement plan, so thank you. I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night thinking of a school improvement plan. But yes, the school improvement plans need to be aligned with the strategic plan. And we need to constantly monitor. That's something the district really hasn't done in the past years, but I really think that we need to continue monitoring continuously where we are, where our schools are. And absolutely, if somebody has concerns at their school, I would encourage all of you to become involved with your school, the school advisory council. It's a great way to give input, to make sure that we are achieving the goals and doing what we said we are going to do. Hold us accountable, because we want everybody to be successful.
Now we have a question from Tanya that I think is also very interesting. Have we been looking at other districts who have been doing innovative things for years and using them as an example for inspiration?
So yes, we have. We've looked at, well, I don't know that we've looked at Loudoun County in Virginia. I know we've looked at some of the counties up in Maryland, pretty much on the East Coast, obviously. But yes, we have. And I'll have to make it a point, Tanya, to take a look at what they're doing in Loudoun County. But we do look to other districts. In fact, whenever we do something different in our district, we always ask, and we're what the other districts are doing. We're members of the Council of Great City Schools, where all around the country are districts that are very similar to us, large urban districts, and we share information with each other. So absolutely.
There was a question a little while before from Becca about individualized learning. how can we focus on the individual child and where that child might be struggling? And for example, possibly having a staff member at the school who's responsible for following that child's education and learning plan.
Okay, so the schools do have teams, okay, that do work together to look at each student. I think it would be a great benefit if we could do it for every student, but with almost 200,000 students, hopefully at the beginning of the year, over 180,000 students, it's hard for them to have individual education plans for each student. But I do think that we're going to have to find a way to customize it for each student. And there are teams at each school. I do think that it's a great idea. I think that's something that I would like to bring up. So beyond Becca, I am going to make a note right now, because we do this for our students with disabilities. We really should be doing it for all students wherever possible. And today, because of the learning loss with COVID, and we know our children are coming back with mental health challenges. A lot of them this has been rough. It's been a very difficult time. Many of the students have lost relatives. So we're going to be having to personalize education for all of our students. It's a lot easier in the smaller schools, but we need to do it throughout our schools. And just because the students in high school doesn't mean they don't have those same challenges. So I would like us to see if there is a way for us to customize individual plans. And certainly the counselors at the schools can help with that, particularly at the high school level. I do think that it's important for us to take a look at those transition years through middle school, when you're coming out of middle school into high school, to see what we can do to individualize the plan for the child to be successful in the remaining years of the school.
And you touch on finance education. That's something that often comes up, and teaching students more about taxes and investing. I think we all wish we had a class like that when we were in high school. What are your thoughts on incorporating financial literacy into the strategic plan?
I would love to see that. Unfortunately, we are limited to some extent, to a great extent, by what the legislature and the Department of Education says that we can teach. I think as an elective, it's great. That's something that students with disabilities are the only group that we've ever really given that to. Our students with disabilities, I know back when my son was in school, learned how to write checks, how to balance a checkbook, how to use a credit card. Also, back when they were in elementary school, we had banks helping the students open up their own, bank accounts. But I do think that it's very important that we talk about financial literacy, especially in high school, because these students are getting involved with huge loans for college. So I think it's a great idea for us to have that. I don't know that we can incorporate it as something mandated at every level. I think it would probably have to be an elective, but I think it's a terrific idea. And I don't think there's a way to put that in the strategic plan, but I will certainly pass that along.
I think we are slowing down a little bit on the questions. If anyone has any additional questions, you're more than welcome to pop them up in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. But if you want to email them, or if you come up with any sort of questions, ideas, thoughts following this meeting, email strategicplan@palmbeachschools.org. And we do have staff who've been monitoring this meeting as well, and they'll be taking your thoughts and your feedback into account. And
okay.
Just as Mrs. Brill?
I just wanted to jump in and just say, along with financial literacy, I also think that civics education is critical for our students. We need to engage them. We need to make sure that we help them to understand how important it is for them to be involved and to understand our government, so that they can be knowledgeable participants as they get older.
Yeah, this meeting that we're in right now is a great example of, civic duties and participating in public processes. So we, of course, want students to be able to, in the future, be strong citizens as well. And again, if anyone has any further questions, email strategicplan@palmbeachschools.org. And palmbeachschools.org, the website, also has lots of information for you. We put updates on there, stories. You can always find the links to the school board meetings from there as well, and the agendas. So we hope that everyone continues to stay updated. And Mrs. Brill, anything else that you would like to add tonight?
Well, basically, I just want to make sure that all of you know, you see at the top of the screen my email address and my cell phone number. Funny thing is that sometimes my cell phone doesn't work out where I live. So if you call my cell phone and I don't get back to you in 24 hours, text me, please. But I've always tried to make myself fully accessible, fully transparent to everybody in the community. I take your suggestions and your criticism very seriously. So I might have been a little bit I can't say I was ill prepared, but not really knowing all of your answers for tonight. But I can assure you that I will follow up, that I'm always accessible to you, and that any concerns that you have, I'm here to help you. We've come a long way in our district. I think more than most people, I can really appreciate it. I've lived here 31 years. And when I first got to Florida, I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? And now I can say that we are turning out some of the top graduates in the country. And we've really been trailblazers. We were trailblazers on inclusion in the state. And now I really want us to be trailblazers on equity, where every student counts, regardless of their background, ethnicity, abilities, everything that we listed. I want to make sure that every child is happy and looks back on their years at Palm Beach County Schools as the best years of their life.
If we have time for it, which I think we have a few minutes, we do have one more question, and that is about recruiting educators. How can we recruit the best educators to join this amazing district? And I didn't want to let the meeting go by without getting that one answered for Tanya.
So I know that we've been very creative in reaching out. I know that we are trying to get teachers, excellent teachers that look like our students also and speak many different languages. But we do have recruiting efforts outside of this area. Also, some of you may know about something called Teach for America, which was a group of people that have, like my daughter was a part of it, and most of her colleagues wound up being the best of the best in educators. We have mentor teachers, but we are reaching out, thinking out of the box. I can tell you that the district has reached out to the top educators in the country. I know that because my daughter got an email inviting her to come teach here, which was pretty ironic. But we are trying everything that we can to get the best educators. Unfortunately, as you know, Florida does not pay very well for the teachers. But, we're a little bit limited because, I shouldn't say a little bit, we're a lot limited by the funding that we get from the state. But we are doing the best and reaching out. And if you know people, please send them to us.
Yeah, working in communications, we are, of course, putting out lots of information from Human Resources about teacher coffee chats and different events that they have going on, trying to recruit some of the best teachers. And the best teachers for our best students.
Jump in. I see a message from one person who's saying that their child is failing and not allowed to be held back. Please speak to your school more. I don't know that, I'm not sure the status of the bill that was in the legislature. There was a bill to allow parents to have their child retained. You can request it by sometime in June. I don't know if that's passed. I don't know if Rita Solnit is still in the background, if she can put something in the chat. But just reach out to me if there's certain circumstances. I know what that's like because I had to fight to have my son retained when I felt that I needed to. So reach out to me and we'll see if there's anything that we can do to assist you. Again, no matter what the subject is, I'm all about the students. I'm all about making sure that we meet all of our students' needs. And I will think out of the box with anybody and help shadow you through the process. And I may get in trouble for saying that, but that's okay. That's why I'm here.
Well, we have your contact information on that slide if we want to bring that up one more time. So that way Lisa has that and anyone else who wants to follow up after this meeting. Thank you so much for hosting this tonight, Mrs. Brill, and for answering these questions for our families and staff and community members.
Thank you.
Have a great night, everyone.